Hi, everybody. Whoa! Stupid camera. Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Allylat Creations. How are you? Like, I'm very far away from the camera. I don't know why it's doing that. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. And if you get anything from my work, a connected dot, an epiphany, a mind-blown moment, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work down below. Pretty. And if you want to order a pyramid or any of the other fun things I make and create with epoxy or paintings or whatever have you, I'm still making ornaments for Christmas. Visit my website, Allylatcreations211.com. Hi. For those of you that did not watch the last Spiritual Soul Advice, again, I am sorry for not being able to do videos. So the boyfriend, I have a boyfriend now. The boyfriend almost took his pinky off. And the last couple of days has been me running him to the ER, then to the doctor, then to surgery, then today was the doctor, and then he had something else. So it's been busy, and it's his dominant hand, and he's having a hard time driving or doing much for himself. So of course, a month in, here we go. Universe is testing my ass pretty bad. So I do apologize for not having consistent videos. It's it is what it is, and I'm a good person, and that's kind of like my specialty, is taking care of people. Did it with my parents. So please forgive. But he's now home with his daughters. So I figured I'm going to do a video early so I can do my other work that I'm so having to catch up on. The philosophy of war. I'm going to get a Wasp Bay and the other books done, I promise. This one is just where we are in the world and what spirit wants. So we're going to start chapter 3. Why war? Should be interesting. And remember, this doesn't read, it reads like the one of the other books. It reads a little differently. So please keep that in mind. Quote, the world is a field of battle where liberty struggles with inertia by the opposition of active force. End quote. Transcendental magic, Levy. Why war? The chaotic conditions now existing in our Europe have elicited many questions from our students throughout the world, especially those in European countries, as to the mystical meaning and philosophical reason for the apparent necessity for war and why it is permitted by a God of love and wisdom. In other words, what is the reason for and the place of war in the cosmic scheme or the grand plan of the universe? This chapter is an attempt in a few paragraphs merely to outline and make comprehensible a stupendous subject whose roots go so deep into the beginnings of manifestation and which would require a large volume to properly elucidate, for the principle of war is an expression of cosmic law. I already like where this is going. Freaking amazing. And again, guys, for those of you who didn't see the first video with this starting of this book, This is from 1917. So this is not a recent book. This is like way back when book. National sickness. Strife and war among nations are simply evidences of inharmony and sickness in the body of humanity, an effort of the body politic to slow off those atoms which refuse to respond to the higher keynote of civilization that is stuck by the more advanced conceptions of harmony, brotherhood, and cooperation among nations. War a lancet. War may be likened to the cruel lancet of the surgeon, which opens a festering boil. It causes temporary suffering and bloodshed, but it permits the escape of the mass of inharmony and corruption, which, if not otherwise neutralized, would poison the entire body, and no real healing can take place until the focus of infection is utterly wiped out. What a concept. Your battles, in the daily battles for poise, control, and harmony, which you begin consciously to fight as soon as you endeavor to follow a higher ideal, you may possibly find yourself worsted in some of the skirmishes of early stages, and evil and inharmony may accumulate until it can no longer be held back, must find physical expression. Thoughts will express. It is a well-known principle of psychology that thoughts express themselves through their creators in terms of action, unless counteracted by opposite thoughts of greater power. But no matter how many skirmishes are lost, if you persistently follow the light of your highest ideal, be it either so primitive to others, it will lead you step by step to ultimate victory. If you find yourself facing such an outbreak, it means that you have created more inharmony or evil than your present stage of spiritual unfoldment is able to transmute. Hence, the precipitation. Light winds. I'm sorry, guys, but come on. 1907 F-teen. The light winds. In all wars on every plane of manifestation, the forces which represent the light, which fight for progress, enlightenment, civilization, the brotherhood of man, and of all nations, which truly fight on the side of St. George against the dragon, must ultimately win. For they become channels through which the constructive, uplifting, and spiritualizing currents of the cosmic forces can find expression and manifest on earth. As we have said elsewhere, before any cycle can close and the cycle return to its primordial state of equilibrium, everything that persistently stands in the way and prevents the manifestation of divine will or the ideal of the particular cycle, everything that resists the indrawal and union, that refuses to respond to the higher vibration or keynote of the cycle, in other words, which refuses to be redeemed, must be wiped out of the path of that closing cycle. Make way for the manifestation of the new. Boom! We're here. Adjustment necessary. Therefore, there must be a great adjustment at the close of every cycle. Here we are, guys. And we are now living in the days when the old Piscean age is still overlapping the beginning of the Aquarian age of brotherhood, whether it be a race, subrace, nation, or individual. If the cycle is sufficiently advanced to permit the adjustment to be made by responding to the law of harmony expressed through love, tolerance, brotherhood, and unselfishness, whether of individuals, nations, or races, then there need be no war, for the resistance has been overcome. precipitated evil. I'm sorry, I'm animated. But if the resistance to the divine has built up such a mass of inharmony, evil, that the spiritual force of the cycle is not sufficient to redeem it, then the adjustment must come as a physical precipitation of the stored up inharmony through the avenue of physical conflict or war, just as a cloud which is so saturated with moisture that the sun cannot absorb, redeem it, must be precipitated as rain, hail, or snow, ere the light of the sun can manifest on earth. Sorry, guys, with the camera. I'm fucking done. Baptism of blood. I'm trying, guys. I don't need you in my face. You don't need to see everything on my face. Baptism blood. As we said in 1917, the countries of Europe, each under its own banner, have been passing through their baptism of blood and then purification by fire. For only thus can their sins be washed away and the chaff and evil weeds consumed. America must also lift high her banner and take her place in the purifying fire. The mystical 12,000 of her tribe can be chosen and sealed. Only those who endure to the end receive the blessing, for out of this terrible baptism there shall arise a purified humanity. France in war. France has had many baptismal experiences, and each time she has taken an onward step, for her natural frivolous disposition has always prevented her from taking the great step which she someday must take, the recognition of the divine law and its guiding power in her affairs as a nation. For she rightfully belongs in the van of those countries which are ready to embrace this newest, truest, yet oldest of all presentations of the wisdom religion. Her opportunity. Therefore, France is once again having her opportunity to learn of the inner realities of life and be willing to follow them. This we hope she is learning today through her terrible baptism of blood and her blinding tears of repentance. And we already see in her eyes the deep comprehension and the steadfast determination of one who knows. Will she remain true to her vision? England's tenacity. England is also passing through the greatest testing in her history, but there are certain racial, tribal characteristics which make her lessons hard to learn. She can stand up with bulldog tenacity for truth and right as she sees it, yet with the same tenacity she holds on to old ideas and conceptions and traditions and finds it hard to let them go and admit that they can be any new interpretation of truth. This fault has heretofore always kept her just a little behind in the great march of spiritual evolution. Australia! Therefore, we will consider her in the person of her eldest son and heir, Australia. Here we have a virgin country, unsullied by war, English, yet not England, the oldest land upon the globe, a country that carries within its bosom the magnetic influences of those who first gave to this world its impetus, of this who first descended and touched the children of men with the divine spark of spiritual intelligence, and now lies in the great measure uncultivated in her dormant, with large areas entirely barren. Her cry comes to us out of the dim, forgotten past. Her possibilities are great, but will her children awaken? Will she lift high the banner of her tribe and fall in line with the others? Russia! Russia is a mere child among the nations, just emerging into adolescence. She has passed her childhood stage of crudity and irresponsible cruelty and is now facing the temptations of the youth. But as she wakes up in this great day of trial, she begins to feel this news of manhood struggling for expression. When the great nation finds herself, as she is sure to do sooner or later, the war will quickly end. Her awakening. She is now passing through a critical test, like a giant awakening from slumber and finding himself in peril. She is beginning to open her eyes, although they are still clouded and heavy with sleep. Reality and unreality merge into each other. She has many lurid dreams. She has ascended several rungs of the great ladder and has seen the angels descending. Will she let them entire? Wait, sorry, can't see. Will she let them enter into and purify her? Or will she let a youthful lust for blood and a desire for revenge pull her down? Germany. Germany we might call the bad boy of the tribes. Although now fully grown, through ambition and pride, he has opened the door to the hordes of evil forces which are seeking to obsess humanity and wreak their will upon it. Through giving expression to these forces, he has become the instrument through which they are being poured out into the world to the testing of the other nations, just as Judas became the instrument of testing to other disciples. Pause. Judas became the instrument, the avatar, the entity of testing, giving catalysts, experiences to the other disciples to learn from. All these negative polarized things are just tests, experiences that we needed to learn from, to have soul growth, to understand, comprehend, understand, all of it, the smackdown, everything. We moving forward to the next epoch, the next cycle, do not need these experiences anymore. We have thus learned, we are remembering. So we got to let it go. Bye-bye. Her humiliation. Hence, his days of testing are mighty and terrible on all planes. That's another keyword right there. Planes of existence, densities, dimensions. Each frequency and density holds another vibratory state, oscillating at different speeds, at different numbers, with different encoding that we are now building up in our body to move forward. Anyway, sorry. For Germany, it is not a child, but a full-grown man, knowing good from evil. He has chosen, therefore, to let us draw a veil over the ultimate sorrow and humiliation and pray that the time of his affliction may be shortened. Lust for power. The Germans, although of age, have not yet reached the fullness of their national and personal karma, have not yet climbed to the top of the first mystic mount, which is Sinai, in the wilderness, or the intellectual heights where a great mass of the nation have awakened to their individual responsibility, for they are still dominated by the lust for power, dominion, and commercial supremacy, hence cannot see that material advance, when not accompanied with corresponding moral and spiritual advance, is an ignis fatuus, leading them to destruction. Military apron strings. Ooh, what kind of apron strings? Germany as a nation, although fully grown up and responsible, is still a leading strings. Like a young man who has reached his majority, yet who has never been permitted to go outside the front yard. It has not learned the lessons of life. It has never been permitted to exercise the rights or assume the responsibilities of manhood. It has always been told to do this or not to do that. It is still tied to the military apron strings of the Kaiser. Needs leading. The majority of the individuals who make up its inhabitants are in a mental state in which they desire to be led rather than to be held responsible for their actions. This has been repeatedly demonstrated by her soldiers on the battlefield, even before those drawn from the higher walks of life. They therefore do not demand anything higher than their Kaiser. Then, such leadership as will bring material success, no matter what the price, hence, they are not ready for anything better. And therefore, it could be a cruel to demand that as a nation, it should face the responsibilities of a manhood. It has never been permitted to develop, although the great lesson must be learned quickly. Quickly. Learning lessons. However, many are waking up only to find themselves led by the leash they themselves have accepted and made possible. They must therefore be let alone to learn the lessons which servitude and failure alone can teach. To bring upon them wholesale cataclysms and disasters of nature before these lessons are learned would not fulfill their just karma. Their karma, they must be allowed to eat to fill of the fruit they themselves have picked. Their belief in the wisdom and justice of the leadership of the Kaiser and his policies, so will they find out the bitterness of the fruits he obtains for them, thus proving in the only way that they will realize and accept his inability to deliver that which he has promised and taught them was the greatest good and the highest end, they are ready for anything higher. When they do awaken and begin to learn their lesson, then as a nation, they will begin to recap the terrible national karma they have created by blindly following the Kaiser. But until they are ready to realize and understand and learn their lessons, the great law must take its course. Russia's karma. They will have plenty of karma when their day of reaping begins, just as Russia is today reaping the national karma, which as a nation she created by her abject submission to the ignominy of slavery and Tsarism. For while it seems as though Russia's recent actions are the result of childish and almost insane folly, nevertheless, they spring from the same trait which permitted them to submit tamely for so many generations to the shackles, the knout, and the unspeakable degradation of Siberia. Your duty. There are many other nations of whom you would scarcely think, who are bearing their banners and passing their tests. Therefore, do not give too great heed when you hear that America is to be the seat of the new race, or that any special part of the United States has been chosen for its center. For all the nations and tribes are in the melting pot, and the one whose people come forth most fitted, will be the one chosen. Respond gladly. It is man, therefore, responding of his own free will to the guidance of the divine, and not the dictates of an arbitrary being who imposes his will upon a helpless humanity, who must bring about peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Sorry, guys. Hence, there is not a single man or woman who cannot be an active factor in bringing the golden age of love, peace, harmony, and brotherhood into manifestation, the sooner through the controlling of thoughts, words, and emotions, and by overcoming his or her resistance and responding more and more understandingly and gladly to the upward urge of the divine. Wow. here we are, just insert country of choice of what's going on now, right? Chapter 4, various aspects of war. Extracts culled from the author's other writings concerning war. Federation of Nations. While this present conflict seems wholly evil, it is not entirely so for the race. Not only will the old karmic debts be adjusted, bingo! But the contending nations will be allowed to enter into a federation, into which the independence of each nation or people will be guaranteed. Nope. As brothers, some older, some younger, in the great social family. Thus, war will be prevented for a long period, and we can enter a new era with a clean slate, as it were. So, no, sorry, guys, that did not happen back in 1917 because not too much long. I mean, yeah, some time, but then World War II happened, and Albert Pike's letter to Giuseppe Mazzini played itself out perfectly. Where we are now is only a movie playing out, but there is real karmic events still occurring, and the clean slate is taking place. War develops unselfishness. The war is developing in the race as a whole. An enormous number of the feminine qualities, love, compassion, sympathy, devotion, unselfishness, and service, so necessary as the race enters the Aquarian or woman's age, the sign of man, the son of man in the heavens. Advanced nations. Among the contending nations, the English, French, and Germans have reached the zenith of their cycles as nations, and hence must be tested ere they can enter the new cycle. They are classed among the nations which represent the highest stage of civilization, culture, intellectual, and material advance on the planet today, but they must now prove the truth of their proud boasts. Must prove whether their civilization and culture is the result of true spiritual growth, or whether it is the mere veneer of intellectual and material attainment, founded in cruelty and intolerance, and without corresponding spiritual unfoldment. A spiritual basis. Hence, their so-called advance in civilization brought their people into a greater realization of the spiritual basis of all manifestation. Has it led them to strive for a more conscious communion with the realms of spiritual consciousness as a daily personal experience? Soul craving. Has it taught them the folly of seeking to satisfy the ceaseless craving of the soul for union with its source through the gratification of the senses or the possession of material things? We are here right now, here in the now, in that. Why? Nasera Jacera. Is it going off? Is the RV going off? Nasera Jacera, Nasera Jacera. Craving of the soul for union with its source. That's what we should be looking for in obtainment, not material things. And what are the possessions of material things? Oh, well, I can get a house, a car, this, a that, a this, and a that. If you put your trust and faith in the Lord, the source of all sources, the infinite intelligence, the creative spirit, the all of all things that created this universe that we also help do, we wouldn't have to worry about the minute things in life that we take for granted in a human form, but we should be linking more to the union of source. Law of brotherhood. Has their scientific study of the wonderful cooperation and brotherhood existing among the cells, tissues, and organs of every unit of organic life led them, if for no other reason, as a matter of efficiency, to follow the same law and express greater tolerance, cooperation, and brotherhood among themselves as members of the body of humanity. The position of women. Have their studies led them to recognize the true position of women as the priestess of the household, the complement and co-worker with man, the spiritual head of the family, as man is the material, the inspirer, and leader in all spiritual, ethical, and moral problems? Emergency tests. Holy crap. EBS. In time of emergency, stress, and strain, when there is scarcely time for thought, will the culture of these nations enable them instinctively to display more love, compassion, self-sacrifice, and humanity? Simply because man is man, then the less cultured nations would under similar conditions. Or will they relapse to the level of uncultured animal man who fights solely for itself? Test of civilization. This is the test which their civilization must stand, and those nations which show most constructively that these higher qualities have been built into their national consciousness must be the ones to dominate and manifest these qualities more perfectly in the world's arena during the new cycle of the new age. The Slavonic nations, I don't know what that is, nations, on the other hand, have not reached the zenith of their evolution, but are on the upward arc. Hence, the more primitive qualities of their civilizations may be used by the great law as instruments with which to accomplish the testing of the more advanced and to make possible the inauguration of the new era. Period of revolt. When the physical conflict is over, a terrible mental revolt against all forms of restraint, both in government and religion, will burst forth. It will be a period of extremes of individualism, a period when the opposition against all systematic and systemized or organized spiritual teachings, which is even now manifesting under various doctrines of religious and so-called soul freedom, will find extreme expression. Agnosticism. It will be a period both of extreme agnosticism and extreme individualistic teaching, when any fantastic theory, even without a rational or philosophical base, will find a hearing and followers. At the same time, there will be a strong feeling upon the part of those who cling to the old conceptions that it is their duty to humanity to enforce the old religious ideals. Religious tolerance. This will be a great test as to whether religious intolerance has been outgrown, for there can be no permanent peace until the minds of a majority of mankind have been sufficiently developed, broadened, and spiritualized to banish it forever. War of ideologies. Hence, all churches, orders, movements, and societies professing a spiritual basis will, on the one hand, have radicals whose extremes will bring them into disrepute, while on the other hand, they will have those who will laugh at, ridicule, discredit, oppose, and persecute them. And the same fire that has manifested as physical war will again sweep the world as a mental, spiritual, and psychic conflict. And it is always those most nearest and dearest of those companions who helped us create that karma, who are used by the great law to test us and adjust the karma. Yes, here we are, guys. We're in it to win a chicken dinner now. Beliefs tested. It will be a time when all spiritual movements will be under a cloud, when spiritually the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son. And children shall rise against their parents and shall cause them to be put to death. Therefore, it will be a period of great testing, a period when every heart who has realized The reality of the spiritual world and its forces must be securely grounded in the philosophy and stand firmly, unshakably for his or her beliefs, even though to do so involves ridicule, persecution, and mental suffering. For every system of teaching not founded upon the rock of divine reality and expressed in terms suitable to the new conditions must pass away to make room for the new. My goodness, guys, we're here. This is it. This is what was written in 1917, and we're here right now again. And I have expressed a lot of this in my spiritual soul advice videos. So please go take a listen to them, because we are being tested. I'm personally being tested right now with my circumstances. I'm being given the mirror of people I'm in a relationship with somebody that reflects my old self, and 2 children who reflect my childhood. And I'm being reflected this crazy insanity to make sure that I can pass, that I already cleared and released that energy out of me so that I can help him heal and his children heal. And I'm not alone, because there's a lot of people being challenged in a very similar way, having people and events and things come into their life that are extreme, that are mirroring other things that has happened in their lives. Just saying. And especially where I'm coming from in the neutrality zone, seeing the collective right now, please keep in mind, we created this universe, we created this experience. We as a whole are fractals of God. We are divine. We are the divine. And so is the all that participate in this experience. That's the bad people and the good people. We're all together playing a game, learning, going through experience. And if we don't go through them, we don't have the learning. We don't have the wisdom to move forward. But right now, everybody's still in division. Everybody's still on taking sides, and everybody is still not aware that what they're doing by negating one side and not looking at the other. Well, you can't say love and light to all if you don't mean it, because that's also the division of the negative polarized people who do heinous things. You also need to send them love and light, because they are a God, and God is of this experience, and God's experiencing this life through them, through via a contract or an arrangement, whatever you want to call it. So for us to sit there and to point fingers at people and to blame and to divide is only dividing God, the source of all sources, the spiritual unfoldment of the all, the consciousness, intelligence, whatever you want to call the energy that be. And there's going to be a huge upheaval, because there's so many people still on that one book paradigm. There's still people on their one book paradigm. There's still people making great progress, but there's not enough. And just like I said in my soul advice, the boyfriend is not awake. He's aware. He's not seeing what I've seen. He's not experienced what I have experienced. And he is just being thrown into a loop and repeating karmic things, because he has yet to be aware that he's repeating his past through his present. It's very complicated. But a lot of us are doing that. And this is the time of where we need to put our foot down to create a new cycle. And how you do that is getting rid of the old, releasing what no longer serves you, because we're going to be put in a loop again. And that's by all of us collectively choosing to keep doing the same old shit and try to figure out how to do it in a new way. No, we need to create a new way, a new pathway, so new doors open. We got to get rid of the old self. We got to kill the old self, metaphorically speaking. Let it go. So we can be rebirthed, have the phoenix rising into a new dawn and a new day. Can't do that if we are stuck looping behavior because we think when we do something different, but it's yet still the old paradigm's ways, something new is going to come out of it. And I don't know. All I do know is that this book is incredible. And it's foreshadowing what might happen to all of us. And again, this was written in 1917. They were not thinking about 2023, 2024. And it's screaming now. The elect. These conditions will be so terrible that they will last only a very few years. For we are told that for the elect's sake, those days, shall be shortened. And except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved. The only way that the elect can prove themselves is by their sincerity, their steadfastness, their trust, and their determination to hold calmly to their spiritual ideals and to rely absolutely upon their divine inner guidance, while they pray without ceasing that these days be shortened. So again, those of you who are in the belief system of 45 walks in neutrality are you. Yes, there's a lot of psyoptic, spiritual, military wars going on that many of us are aware, but some of us aren't aware of. And walking that neutral path is feeding both wolves because you're pacifying them both while you walk the straight line to God. The great teacher. Words and arguments will be of no avail. The truth of their beliefs can be proved only by living them. The truth of their beliefs can be proved only by living them. All such will be like bright and shining lights in this period of mental and spiritual darkness. Or more correctly, blindness. It will be at the close of this period that the long-expected great teacher, the avatar, will appear to reassure distracted humanity of the spiritual basis of all manifestation and to outline a new and higher conception of the spiritual life and its forms of expression. Now, that doesn't say Yeshua Melchizedek is coming down. It's no. He ain't coming back because he is a part of many of us. And I don't think it's one avatar. I honestly think it's a collective of us who are here providing you what we are getting channeled, because again, our thoughts are not our own. Most of us is coming from up there and from the highest of the highs. So again, I don't think it's one avatar that will be a great teacher. I think it will be a plethora of us stepping into that role. Not one being, because we're all fractals of the one. So, hi. Spiritual flower. Today, by means of the horror and carnage of war, the mills of the gods are grinding the grains of spiritual obtainment, disrupting the husks of prejudice, the hampering limitations of country and nation and race, freeing the individual grains of tolerance, kindness, compassion, love, self-sacrifice, helpfulness, and brotherhood from the personal limitations and grinding of all together into the flour, from which, under the direction of the coming great teacher, the bread of the new age can be made. Who knows? 45 might be that role. God's working through him and all of us. Sundering limitations. Not only is let me start over. Not only is this true of those nations which are participating in the great conflict and bearing its burdens, but it is true in a lesser degree for all nations, for it needs just such world horrors as are transpiring today to break open the limiting shell of national consciousness and of separate organization and awaken into activity those souls who are the germ centers or the individual grains from which the bread of life must be made. The storms of carnage and disaster are but the mill wheels of the gods grinding the separate grains into homogeneous flour, which the hands of the enlightened Christ man must make into bread for all the world. Giant weeds. Remember, the horrors of war are not a part of the divine plan. They are created by man. But its cruelty and inhumanity to man, by its unbrotherliness, intolerance, even among the enlightened, and by its trampling into the dust, the small and seemingly insignificant independent germ centers scattered among its millions, humanity has so hardened the husk of the race seed and so buried its vital germ cells in its wild rush for wealth, power, dominion, and self-aggrandizement, that when the sign of the Son of Man arose in the heavens and began to pour out its cleansings and fertilizing power, the giant weeds of selfishness and antagonism sprang up and had to be let grow with the grain until the harvest time. And the weeds are now being destroyed that the golden grains may be ground into flour. Husks of personality. Woe then to those who either individually or collectively refuse to be garnered in, who refuse to place their golden grains of personal attainment, understanding, and ability to help humanity in the great mill of the gods, and allow the outer husks of personal and limiting conceptions to be broken upon and all their forces liberated, grounded, and unselfishly unified with others to make the nourishing bread of life, which the powers of the cosmic Christ breaks and blesses and give to them and distribute to the multitude. Blood-stained path. Largely due to the materialization of spiritual symbols, the onward march of civilization proceeds along a path so stained with the blood of man that it is like a red river reaching back into the beginnings of the race. The history of the Christian church, which should be the bride of the Christ, arrayed in garments of the spotless white, began in bloodshed, and ever since, it has been one sickening story of the blood of man shed by his brother in the name of the Prince of Peace and the Lord of Love. The Inquisition. From the Holocaust of the early days in Rome, through the Inquisition, with its devilish devices for adding torture to the shredding of blood, through the exploitation of less powerful peoples by the more powerful in the name of Christianity, down to the present day when half the world is calling upon the same God for the blood of its fellow man. Through all this, the justified blood sacrifice has held sway. America's guilt. Even our own United States, the so-called land of freedom, liberty, and justice, was founded in bloodshed, with certain shining exceptions, such as the land purchased by William Penn and the missions founded along the Pacific coast by the Franciscan fathers. When driven from the old world by bloody persecutions in the name of religion, Christianity planted its standards in this new world, by the same methods. And later on, these same methods were continued in the burning of witches and the treatment of the slaves and the Indians. America's karma. As the days of the reckoning and readjustment come, the days foretold by Jesus, when we would see the sign of Aquarius, the sign of Son of Man, ruling in the heavens as the celestial water bearer pours out in greater abundance the waters of life. The mother aspect of the cosmic life force, need we be surprised that the harvest in the old world is one bloodshed? For nor we of America think that we can escape our ultimate baptism of blood during this great cycle readjustment, for the great law will not hold us guiltless. Wrong thinking. Only by reaping the karmic result, not so much of the deeds of the flesh as of the wrong thinking, the false teaching, and the materialization of the symbols of the New Testament, can humanity learn to look beneath the surface, beneath the literal meaning of symbols and words, and enter into the spirit of that which is intended. Karma is readjustment. Karma is not so much reaping the results of past acts as it is the readjustment of the effects of wrong thinking. It is not an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, but the equalization of conditions and bringing about an exact justice. It is largely the suffering which logically results from wrong thinking that brings to the world as to the individual an awakening in which it refuses to follow tradition and present when they no longer coincide with its enlightenment conceptions of that which is best. Wrong interpretation. We of the new day desire to obey the words of Jesus, but ye therefore perfect, and yet as we look back over history, we see that if the teaching that mankind can be saved only through a blood sacrifice has brought the world to such a pass, something must be radically wrong. Agreed with that big statement. And yet, since the same symbols are found in all other religions and are world old, the source of the wrong must be sought in the symbols themselves, but in the orthodox and materialized interpretation of them. War, a blood sacrifice. For the world today is thoroughly convinced that war, which is but the ultimate of blood sacrifice, does not produce justice, does not bring perfection, does not tend to make all men brethren, or all people's children of the one loving Father, who calls them to his table and breaks the bread and passes the cup and calls upon them to eat and drink unto everlasting life. Karma in the Bible. Ever since the childhood of the race, man has been disobedient to the divine guidance. Has been ambitious, selfish, cruel, and bloodthirsty. Yet in spite of this, civilization has steadily advanced in a cyclic spiral fashion. This has been accomplished through the great law, constantly working with man in its sevenfold manner, always trying to inspire him with higher ideals, always utilizing for his learning through the law of karma, the suffering he brings upon himself. This law is enunciated in the Bible in the words, whatsoever a man sow, that shall he also reap. One jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Oppression forbidden. Through this law, which is divine justice, man is taught through actual experience that he cannot love God and hate his brother. That he cannot truly worship God while he oppresses even the least of the ignorant little ones who his brethren in Christ without in some life, either now or in the future himself, suffering from injustice, hatred, oppression, until Saturn has gathered all the crop of unbrotherliness his heart has brought forth, and as with individuals, so with nations. And after the reaping, when the golden grains have been gathered by the four winds, From all the fields of earth, those who have come out of great tribulation, and whose garments have been made white in the blood of the Lamb. Then the mighty downpouring of the water of life will just as surely bring to fruition the seeds of man's divine nature as it already has lower, those spiritual seeds which, sown in corruption, it is raised in incorruption, it is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory, it is sown in weakness, it is raised in power, it is sown in a natural body, it is raised in a spiritual body. For the world, this new spiritual body will be the Aquarian age, and for each individual, a new conception of love, light, power, and life, the actual unfolding of the Christ consciousness and manifestation of its power in the life. Saturn the Reaper. But first, there must come the realization that because Saturn must reap the tares you have sown, he is not to be thought of as evil, but as one of the sons of God, who in divine love and compassion clears the ground that you may bring forth the Christ seed and reap your spiritual harvest. Guys, like I said, God, Satan, it's one paradigm, but it's one paradigm. Lucifer, Archangel Hallel, is of source, played a role as the adversary to teach us when you're in the darkest how to shine the brightest of lights to see. Stop taking shit literal. Understand. We all have two poles, a positive and a negative, a feminine and a masculine. We have duality. You can't hate the negative. You don't have to like what they're doing. No one does. But if they didn't do their shit, we wouldn't be awake. And if we weren't awake, they wouldn't understand the other side of the coin. They get to make a conscious choice to change their behavior and be modeled by people like us who are walking the righteous path. They won't have that opportunity if you're always slandering them and putting them down because you don't like what they're doing. Maybe they don't see what they're doing is wrong. Again, there's brainwashing. This is like next level shit. But in one breath, we hate these people, and the next breath, well, they're brainwashed. Well, what is it? You can't have it both ways. Guys, I have people in New York, and it's constant MK Ultra. It's constant bombardment of frequency and vibratory states. Unless you are someone like myself or someone who is aware, that is a light worker, that can block those frequencies, that can rise above that, most people don't do any of their work. So they're being bombarded and they're brainwashed. They have no idea. And these people are freaking amazing people. They're just not aware. Now we're going to point the finger at them and say, well, you voted for this one. You did this one. You're this, you're that, you're the. It's God playing an experience through an avatar. We need to drop the division. It's all of God's paradigm. And if you want to take God out of the equation, it's of the source code. If you want to take it as a video game, it's a code. World of Warcraft, perfect example. Alliance and Horde. And guess what? Really good people like to play the evil, right? What we consider evil. They're just people playing an avatar. They're good people. They just chose the cooler avatars that look cool for them. You know, all for the Alliance. That's what I was playing. But my friends are playing the Horde characters because they thought it was cool. So FYI, does that make them a bad person? Because their avatar is playing a bad role. Just have an experience. Still have to traverse life the same. Still have to go on quests and missions and do for whatever you want to do in order to have attainment in life, it's no different. So we need to stop this nonsense. It's all a source. Mercury and Venus. And just as Saturn is an aspect of God, so also is Mercury. He who takes your every aspiration Godward, your every effort towards victory, and your every realization to the very throne of God, then through the intercession of this winged messenger, Venus, or divine love, enters and builds her nest in your heart and brings forth her young. As you thus become a real Aquarian, you will at least realize that because you have loved much, much has been forgiven. Spiritual grain. The whole world is today a great testing ground for a similar ingathering. It is the field and humanity is the grain. The angels are the reapers and the harvest time is now at hand. Out of the grains that grow in the fields of earth, comparatively, few are fitted and ready to be made into the bread of eternal life. But it is just as possible through the scientific application of the laws of growth to double and treble the nutrition with an IV power of the spiritual grain as it is of the physical grain. By spreading the truths of men's spiritual heritage and the laws of his spiritual growth, mankind can consciously multiply the quantity, improve the quality, and hasten the ripening of the spiritual grain. Workers needed. While the angels are the reapers, they need loving souls on earth who are eager, devoted, trained, and ready to go out into the fields and vineyards and bring the golden sheaths into the granary of the Lord. We individually and collectively, who can recognize the times in which we live and the great events foreshadowed in the heavens, must work with all our hearts and minds and powers towards spreading the news of the coming of the New Jerusalem. You are needed. We must encourage, cheer, uplift, and teach all who will listen to the call of the Christ, that they may gather in the New Jerusalem. There is no place for drones. A book in 1917 said drones. Sorry, I had to point that out. For once we have vowed allegiance to the Christ and his work, the great law of the universe will force us to fulfill our vows or pay the penalty. Thus, we must become either helpers and redeemers of mankind or stumbling blocks in its path. If we refuse to take a firm stand on the positive side of good, we are swept into the negative current. The New Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem has existed throughout eternity as a perfect and ideal state of humanity, but it has only existed in the higher realms, and only in our highest selves have we been able to dwell in its mansions. If it is to become a reality upon the physical plane, its manifestation must be accomplished by the united efforts of all sincere and devoted followers of the Christ who are awakened to its possibility. We must begin with ourselves. In New Jerusalem can manifest within us. In us. But we must permit the King of Righteousness not only to enter into his tabernacle, but dwell there within. Our hearts and minds and bodies must literally be made holy temples, sanctuaries of the Most High. Sacred sanctuaries. The first step, then, in this great coming of the Lord is to prepare our tabernacles. It is useless to look forward to the founding of an ideal, dry or center of civilization in some favored spot on earth, where the gods or the god powers shall incarnate in a perfect manhood and womanhood. where the great ones shall teach mankind face to face and establish the reign of love and justice, unless we begin the preparation for such manifestation in our hearts and minds and lives. For unless we can build within ourselves sacred sanctuaries in which the God powers can dwell and manifest and enable us to live in love and fellowship with our brothers and sisters, how can we expect to associate with the great ones? Karma. Extract from a letter to a student of the order of Christian mystics. In the reply to your question, as the lords of karma, the winds and allies are directed to say that karma always includes several kinds: personal, sectional, environmental, national, racial, and world karma. It is like a cord made of several strands, each strand being made of an innumerable threads, quantum entanglement. World karma. While karma necessarily affects all humanity through the seasonal changes, through the world disasters, wars sufficiently great to affect all. This general world karma is modified in different regions by each region's national karma, sectional climatic changes, storms, disasters, and still further by the personal karma of its inhabitants. National karma. Thus, national karma is a determining factor in the national spirit, national environment, national reaction, etc., and determines to what extent the nation shall participate in the world karma. Personal karma. The personal karma gives the individual his place and determines his reaction to the national karma, namely, to what extent he personally shall participate in it. For instance, whether he will be drafted in such times as these, and where he will be assigned when drafted, whether at the front or somewhere in the rear. The four winds. The mystical winds referred to in our lesson on the four winds are one of the currents of the force used by the great lords of karma to bring about on earth the conditions which will make the working out of these various lines of karma possible, the physical winds being used as one agency or instrument to bring this to pass. Persons involved. Thus, when a great catastrophe occurs, such as an earthquake, the Holocaust at Halifax, the failure of crops, it is the result first of world karma, inasmuch as the world currents there find a focal point for expression, yet all the other lines of karma must also operate in and through it, thus modifying it. No one whose personal karma did not call for such an experience would be present at those points at the time, or present would be what might seem be a miraculous escape, such as recorded in every catastrophe. Good from evil. Yet the karma, even those who pass through the catastrophe, may not have been preponderantly bad, for in many cases only such a crushing blow would stir their hearts and awaken them out of their selfishness, and call forth and develop their human sympathy and compassion for others, which up to that time may have been dormant or at least unexpressed. If one could see such disasters from the higher planes, he would see many more bright and golden threads than black ones. The north wind. As the storms and winds fighting against the interests of the Allies through disturbance to their shipping, depots, movement of troops, again, we have to consider world, national, and regional karma. The mystical north wind is the one given power in these last days to sweep away old conditions and make ready for the new, just as the physical north wind does with the vegetation of the past season. If the national or regional karma brings the Allies into its path in a region where it's fulfilling its appointed work, the most that can be done is to modify its intensity in accordance with the good karma present in the national, environmental, and personal karma of those in its path, whether under normal conditions they were not supposed to be. It is much as though a mouse ran out of its hole directly in front of the broom, which with which the housemaid was cleaning the room, although she has no intention of hurting the mouse or even disturbing it. It's funny. Meager, it's my computer. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying. Meager reports. It is scarcely possible for the mind of the average man, untrained in the metaphysics of the manifestations of the great law, to understand why the Germans, who are giving expression to its destructive aspects, seem not to suffer from like disasters of nature, or do not have to contend against them to the same extent. The most obvious reason is that full reports of the disasters from which they suffer do not reach our ears. Chastening. But as to the occultism of it, if you take a broader and higher and wider view and realize the inner meaning of the text, whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as sons. But if ye be without chastisement, is it chastisement? Sorry, guys. My brain's all over the place. Then ye are bastards and not sons. You will begin to understand the reasons. The Allies test. In other words, the Allies as nations have reached a point where they are ready to pass the great and final test of the chastisement of sonship, which for all who can endure to the end will mark a new day in the manifestation of universal brotherhood. Injustice. He who tolerates injustice is creating injustice within himself. And the more long-suffering either a nation or an individual is under injustice, the more they dwell upon and create it. Hence, when the revolt or time of expression comes, they will express the very injustices and cruelties upon which they have so long brooded. All right, that ends that section. Next time, permanent peace, God's plan. Woohoo! So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This was, section. Because we're going through all of this right now. Just like all their other books. Just apply all the other books and throw it here because we're here. So again, following my spiritual soul advices, please do your inner work. Please go in and find the neutrality. Take the bird's eye view before reacting, before making comments, before going out and bashing, dividing. And it's okay to point out the wrongdoings of other people. But if we're bringing in the Christ consciousness, did Yeshua shun other people? Did he not heal whoever his path and what he was called to do? We only know little tidbits here and there of his journeys, of what other people scribed in texts. Yeshua didn't write. So we really don't know all the other miracles and healings and things that he said. We really don't know the totality of his mission. But what I can tell you is that he serviced anybody who would come to him. There was no justice involved. There was no, well, that person's a this and that person's a that, and I'm not going to help them. He helped whoever he could. And now we're sitting in the same boat because there's so much division. The political system, the religious system, this system and that system. Okay, and yeah, not all of them are good and not all of them are bad. So we got to take the good with the bad and understand you got to feed both sides. You got to feed the wolf on both sides. Come to neutrality, see for what it is, the truth in the frequency that you're at, and then transcend that and move your frequency up to see the larger portion of the truth, because you're only seeing it in layers. Truth is a frequency. And if you're at a low frequency, you're only getting a shred of what that truth really is. You're only seeing it from a narrow point of view. When you start expanding and expanding, but you're also coming into neutrality where you see both ends of the poles, you see a very different truth than the person that's only vibing right here. We got to stop dividing. We're all sons and daughters of God. That includes the evil people. They can denounce God all freaking day. They're still from source. The source code, the infinite intelligence, the creative manifestation of spirit. We're all here doing this together. They're just playing a role. So when you figure that out, and when we can all start, instead of denouncing people, and yeah, we got to point out the wrongs. I'm not saying not to. Okay. They did a lot of horrible, heinous things. There's a huge imbalance here on this planet. It's okay to point it out. But what we need to transcend at this point is that it's of an experience that we no longer need, that we got to drop. Everybody's waiting. The solar flash. We're ascending. We're moving up. We're doing all this crazy, awesome shit. Well, yeah, and it's not happening because not enough of us are walking the middle way path. We're still in judgment. We're still dividing. Even the light is still dividing itself. Feed both wolves equally. So you pacify both sides. You could see both sides very clearly. You get to choose which polarity you want to go to. But you still need to walk the neutral path. You still need to walk the righteous path. You still need to be the example. Be the lighthouse that you are meant to be. Be the angel that you are meant to be. Play the role. Even if you don't feel like you're an angel, play the role. Pretend it's Halloween every day, that you're putting on your wings and you're going to be doing awesome stuff for people. And if you are of the biblical terms, what would Yeshua do? How would we go about it? How would we think of that? If you think, everybody preaches Yeshua, Jesus, are you walking that path? Or you're just spewing out his words, but not embodying them? Again, I never read the Bible. I don't have to understand what his mission was here, what he was to this world. And he's not alone. There was other Christs. What did Buddha do? There's so many. You could pluck a religion, pluck a culture, pluck from there, whatever you want to insert. What did they do? How would they act? If they were back right now in embodiment, what would they say about you? And if it's negative self-speak, that means you need to change your mindset and to start living in neutrality. We are not going to have this repeat again. But these words from 1917 is repeat. Let's stop the loop. And next reading is going to be freaking amazing. So guys, sending each and every one of you love, light, grace, compassion, protection, and shielding. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you have yet done so already, because that helps me help you, help me get the word out. And again, these books, all the PDFs are free. You can go to their website and they have a massive ton of books that are amazing. I am reading all of them and they're on my channel, so go look at that. The Curtis books. No matter what book, it blows my mind. So I hope it's blowing your mind and helping you steer in a better direction in your life. You have to live now, not tomorrow. That already gone. That's in the past. Adios. And if we go too far into the future, we lose sight of what is in front of us. Try to live as presently as possible. Try to make each and every day something worthwhile, even if it's chaotic and crazy. Again, we're being all tested. Karma, you can insert any word you want to put if you're not a karma believer. The universe is testing you, and it's testing a lot of us. I'm being heavily tested right now. Major scale stuff, fifth density stuff. I'm being tested right now. So take each day with compassion and grace. Live your fullest to whatever extent you can, and try to rise those vibrations up, because we need you. We need everybody. Stay warm, guys. It was really chilly by me today and windy. So I have a beanie. I need a pooper up here. Looks weird. So guys, please enjoy. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do a video tomorrow. The Boyfriend's Girls has a 5K run and I'm a cheerleader on the sidelines in the morning. So we'll see what happens, but just come check me out in the chat. We Not Me on Sunday, 11 a.m. Central. I'll be there. And hopefully soon I will be on Sacred Valley with Dina and Tara. We'll see. I was supposed to go on today, and then the all day doctor physical therapy and me running around like an animal happened, and didn't get home in time. But I did get to say hi to everybody, and Brian was using my username and chatting with everybody. So I'm happy he's at least attempting to listen and get into my world. So guys, I hope you all have a good one. Have a great week. And if I do get a video in, great, but just letting you know, it might be Monday. And until the next one, guys, please be safe, be seen, and see you on the next one.